This is Matt Hurt at Obsessive Viewer on Twitter.
This is Ben Sears at Ben Sears on Letterboxd.
And this is ObsessiveViewer.com's The Obsessive Viewer Podcast. Hello and welcome to The Obsessive Viewer. We're a movie and TV podcast that covers a specific topic, be it genre, trope, movie, or show each episode. You can find more of our work at ObsessiveViewer.com and more podcasts presented by Obsessive Viewer at ObsessiveViewer.com/podcasts. And if you'd like to support what we do here, you can become a patron at Patreon.com/ObsessiveViewer, where we have several different monthly tiers. So at $1 per month, you get access to a pretty laid back, casual B-roll episode feed that just has us kind of talking about just nonsense stuff at the start of each recording of each episode. That is our most prolific one. We do that all the time. At the $2 level, you get access to that, plus TV and book reviews and reaction episodes that I do. I'm currently doing episode reviews of Foundation and Chapelwaite, and I'm about to start a review series on Invasion on Apple TV+, and I just concluded a very quick review series on Midnight Mass on Netflix. So all that's at the $2 level. And then, let's see, and then for $5, you get access to movie commentary tracks and reactions. I've got a bunch of commentary tracks up there. I did a bunch of Halloween commentary tracks, so that's up there. And then also, I'm starting to do this Patreon potpourri, where I kind of talk about movies that I've seen in a non-spoiler fashion. So I just did The Last Duel, Halloween Kills, and Dune. So that's up there at the $5 level. And then at $10, you get access to everything that I've said, plus early access to full movie or full release episodes and everything. So again, all that's at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. And I'm your host, the aforementioned Matt Hurt. And with me today is recurring co-host and contributing reviewer on obsessiveviewer.com. I had to think for a second. It's Ben Sears. How's it going, Ben?
Good.
Nice.
How's it going?
Pretty good. I did not update the list, the notes that I have and everything, so I had to dance around that to fit it to this episode. But by the way, thank you to Kim C. from the Year of Underrated Stephen King for joining me on a review of Midnight Mass in the last episode. That was so much fun, and I'm so glad that I got a chance to have her on and talk about Midnight Mass, which is an incredible show. Ben, do you mess with Midnight Mass at all?
Nope.
Interesting. Do you have any interest in it?
Nope.
Interesting. Okay. Because I know, is it that you just don't like horror, or is it that you don't like good shows?
Both.
Okay.
I hate good things.
Nice.
No, it's
exactly why you're slumming it here.
It's partially the horror thing. It's partially just I have so many more shows that I would rather watch first. It's really interesting, and I'm not going to hard sell you on it or anything. I'm just going to say that I know that you have a certain history with religion to an extent. And I will say that I was very fascinated by the way that Midnight Mass depicts religion and religious faith and Catholicism, and it's really, and it has some of the best acting I've seen this year. Just blanket statement. Interesting.
Yeah, Hamish Linklater is in it, and he plays a young priest that kind of comes to Crockett Island, and stuff happens. But there are like sermons that he gives, and when he's giving communion to everyone, it's like I have not stepped foot in a church in many a year, and I've never considered myself to be like a practicing person of any kind of faith in my life. But like,
you're not spiritual. You're not religious. You're spiritual.
I'm spiritual. I don't know. Mercury's in retrograde. I don't even know what that means, and I don't mean to offend or anything. But the way that it's depicted, the way that the ceremony and just the way that the ceremony and the faith of the people in the show is depicted is like endlessly fascinating to me. So that's my soft pitch. I think you might get something out of it. But you know, do you? Yeah. Yep.
Speaking of soft pitches.
Oh, yes.
I have a challenge to the listeners, and I have not brought this up to you on or off mic before.
Okay.
So I'm going to bombard you here.
Gotcha.
And I wish that the viewers could get the look of just pure terror that's on Matt's face right now.
Okay. I would say more confusion, but okay.
Yeah, that too. So I'm looking right now on the Apple Podcasts app.
Okay.
For the obsessive viewer.
Oh, God. I have not looked at this in a very long time, I should say.
Well, it seems that nobody else has either.
Oh, okay.
But so as of right now, there are 52 ratings for the Obsessive Viewer podcast.
Okay.
And I think I counted there's like 40 something reviews.
Okay.
So
you may notice, just as a brief tangent, some of those reviews from like 2013 are one person saying, "Oh, really great pop culture discussion," and then several other people saying, "Really great pop culture discussion," because in my youth, I engaged in iTunes review swapping with other podcasters, which was a very big mistake, and I regret it and everything. I don't know if the review is still up there, but there's one that's like, "Oh, I heard about this show on this podcast," which is just that guy's podcast. Like he's literally plugging his podcast in a review. Yeah, but anyway. So, yeah.
So challenge to all the listeners out there. And Matt, I'll give you veto power on this since I guess technically this is your podcast.
Right.
So if we can get, I'll say we're at 52 right now. If we can get to 200 ratings.
Oh, okay.
And we'll say...
I feel like you are woefully overestimating how many listeners.
Just wait until they hear the reward.
Okay.
200 ratings. And we'll say 150 reviews.
Okay.
If we can get to that, we will resurrect the Summer of Sandler.
Okay. I am not going to veto that.
Okay.
I am on board. I am so on board. Okay. Yeah. So 200 ratings, 150 reviews.
Yes.
Summer of Sandler, where we will cover
everything since what, Grown Ups 2 or
yeah, I think
somewhere around there.
Jack and Jill, which came first, Jack and Jill or Grown
Jack
Ups
and
2?
Jill was first.
Okay, so then Grown Ups 2. Grown Ups 2 might be the last one that we did. Wow, that's a good one. That's a good one. I like that.
Or whatever the last one was.
Yeah. So just off the top of my head, granted, we will do Uncut Gems, which will be fun to revisit, but also Hubie Halloween and
Meyerowitz Stories.
Oh yeah, New and Selected.
What else has he been in?
The what's it called? The one
all of the Netflix movies.
Yes. Oh God, yeah.
His stand-up special,
which I heard was really good.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I liked it.
Okay, yeah. We'll do that.
There's some interesting content to discuss.
Nice.
So, people out there, you got your assignments.
Get to reviewing.
And you cannot fund a bot army to write a bunch of fake reviews and ratings and stuff, because we will definitely be able to tell what's real and what's fake.
Definitely look into that and everything. Yes. The funny thing is, I feel like at least one listener would probably be able to do that.
Well, whoever you are, do not wink. Do not do that. Wink.
Whoever you are, don't do that. And thank you for selling me a laptop. He's really behind on the podcast anyway. So anyway, but no, I even if we don't reach that, I would love it if you guys posted reviews and ratings and stuff. Because as every other podcast says, it really helps us out a lot. Which, I mean, we're a movie and TV podcast in Indianapolis. I mean, it's going to help us incrementally.
Every little bit helps.
Absolutely. And on that similar note, by the way, today on the podcast, we are going to be reviewing The Last Duel and Mass. And then we're going to round out with some potpourri about one thing that I saw at Heartland, several things that Ben saw at Heartland, and one thing that I saw that it wasn't related to Heartland. So look forward to that. But Ben, I do want to ask you how your Disney series is going on Midwest Film Journal. And I saw that today Tarzan 2 posted. I didn't read it.
It sure did.
Yeah, that's the one. I remember you saying you had, that was going to be an interesting one. So anyway, Disney.
Well, while I talk about that, you can pull it up and you can read it in its entirety.
Yeah. Okay.
So Disney's still going pretty strong. Kind of actually surprisingly in a relatively strong, relatively upbeat swing. Tarzan 2 I actually kind of liked. Next week is Lilo and Stitch 2. And the week after that is the sequel to The Emperor's New Groove. So, going on kind of a hot streak at the moment.
Nice.
And I forget off the top of my head what last week's was.
I'm still... this is very... I'm not going to give away what this is, but this is really interesting. Wow. Okay. Yeah. I will
very
link to this in the show notes. Oh yeah. That's really funny. Nice.
It took me all day to listen to write that.
I bet.
Before this week was Mulan 2, so that's where the streak ended.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that is something else.
But that being said, we are kind of coming to the gigantic cliff, which is the end of the animated films that I'll be covering and the beginning of the live action ones.
Interesting.
Meaning like all of the Beverly Hills Chihuahua spin-offs and the Air Bud spin-offs.
Oh, God.
And whatever that has morphed into.
Oh, wow.
So it's going to be a dark time in the next few weeks.
Oh, yeah. And this I mean, I guess it's Disney Plus, but did you see the trailer for Home Sweet Home Alone?
No.
Okay. We can talk about that and then we can get into the meat of the episode and everything, but Home Sweet Home Alone is a remake-able of Home Alone, and the trailer is very bizarre because it is incredible. Like, it is very much a remake. Like, it is like they have scenes that are not homages, but just completely lifted from like the original, which fine, remake, whatever.
Yeah.
But like they have like one legacy character.
Is it Donald Trump?
No, God, no. Although he did, I'm not going to get into that.
Oh boy.
Yeah. He released a statement today about the passing of Colin Powell.
Oh God.
Which, I mean, was as crass and just ridiculous as you can imagine.
On brand.
Yep. Did you read it?
I read an article that talked about it.
Okay.
So basically, yes.
Yeah. Yep. More insight than anything he's ever written. But anyway, so Home Sweet Home Alone has one legacy character. It's Buzz, at least in the trailer. Buzz, who is now a cop and everything. And like it's, I don't know, it's kind of silly because in the trailer it's like, oh, do you need help, kid, or whatever? And it's just a close-up shot of his name, his badge, and it says McAllister, and I'm like, okay. But the villains of the movie are, I think it's, oh God, what's his name? Ellie Kemper and the guy, God, why can't I think of his name? It's like right on the tip of my tongue. Rob Delaney. Yeah.
Okay.
So that at least looks like it'll be kind of fun, but I don't know. I'm open-minded, but I just think it's kind of a weird hybrid of I'm getting choked up. Of getting like a remake and sequel kind of thing.
Okay.
Yep. It comes out November 12th. So, yeah. We'll have to postpone Ebert again to cover that.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So, anything else news related or anything that we can talk about?
I don't think so.
Okay, cool. I just took a drink. All right. Well, yeah, let's get into the episode then. As I said, we're going to be reviewing The Last Duel and Mass. Mass, I think we'll save for second. And we'll start with The Last Duel, which is Ridley Scott's latest movie. Ben and I both saw it at a screening. And it came out this past Friday in theaters. And are you ready to discuss The Last Duel?
I'm ready.
Okay. So, as usual, we're going to do a non-spoiler and spoiler review for The Last Duel. And, I'll prompt you guys for when we go into spoilers, and I'll play a clip from the trailer then. But for now, let's go into non-spoilers for The Last Duel. The Last Duel is rated R. It is the plot summary, courtesy of IMDb. Is King Charles VI declares that Knight Jean de Carouge settle his dispute with his squire by challenging him to a duel. The movie was directed by Ridley Scott and written by Matt Damon and Ben Affleck and Nicole Holofcener. And it stars Matt Damon as Jean de Carouge, Adam Driver as Jacques Legris, Jodie Comer as Marguerite de Carouge, and some other people too. Ben Affleck, which we'll talk about that. That was a choice. And also Black Mirror alum Alex Lothar as King Charles VI. So Ben, how do you feel about Ridley Scott as a director, and how did you feel about The Last Duel in kind of broad terms, in terms of his, I guess, could we say return to like medieval combat movies?
Period pieces.
Yeah.
I outside of Gladiator, I don't think I have seen too many of Ridley Scott's like period movies. I did not see the Robin Hood movie.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Did he do one called like Exodus?
Gods
and Kings, was that him?
I don't think. No, that might have been Alex Ross Perry. Maybe. Or maybe I'm thinking of something else. But he did do Kingdom of Heaven, though.
Okay.
Which I have not seen in several years. But I remember liking it. Exodus, Gods and Kings was directed by Ridley Scott. You're right. Wow. Jeez.
Okay.
Huh. Okay.
So I, looking at his filmography, he does a lot of different genres.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll be talking about him in the next few weeks.
Yep.
Because
he directed Home Sweet Home Alone.
Yeah. And really. Ebert's Great Movies List.
Yes.
Nominee. But yeah, I like, of the ones that I've seen, I mostly like his movies.
Mm-hmm.
I really love Gladiator. I haven't rewatched that in a while, but
me neither.
I love that one. And yeah, he's really talented. And going into this, I had little to no expectations.
Okay.
I think I might have watched the trailer once, but if I did, it was like during a football game that I was half paying attention to.
Oh yeah, I know how that goes.
And I knew that he was directing 2 movies this year, and I was more excited for House of Gucci.
Oh yeah,
and I still am. But I was pleasantly surprised by this one.
Nice.
So, I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, me too. I really didn't have any expectations for this movie. I knew just vague story ideas, but I remember at the screening, like I overheard someone say like, "Oh yeah, I heard that it's like 3 different perspectives and everything," and so like that kind of perked my ears up a little bit, and I was like, "Okay, yeah, that's kind of interesting." But yeah, and so I don't believe, I may have seen the trailer once, but I didn't know anything about it really until the movie started. And I was really pretty overall kind of really impressed by it. Just in terms of Ridley Scott filming those just big battle sequences.
Yeah.
I loved that, but I also loved that that's not the point of the movie. It's not the focal point. The structure of the movie and the way it deals with perspective and perception is really, really just really interesting storytelling for me.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to talk about it too.
I think the biggest thing that I knew about this going into it was that it was written by Matt Damon and Ben Affleck.
Yeah, it's the first co-writing thing since Good Will Hunting.
Correct.
Yeah.
And
it's interesting.
And I knew that Nicole Hofstadter was brought in to write the female parts, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit more. But I don't know how that comes across, that they wrote this script and then brought her in to like, you know, lend some authenticity to
it.
Right.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, because I didn't know that they brought her in like after the fact or anything. Do you know if like they had written that section of the movie yet, or was it like, hey, we need a woman on scene?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm sure I have heard it said one way or the other, but I don't remember.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I found that I find that to be pretty interesting. In terms of the storytelling, like I said, the battle scenes are great, but it's secondary to the overall plot. Mm-hmm. What I found really captivating about this, and of course we're in non-spoilers, so we won't go into detail, but it is specifically set up in 3 separate parts, 3 chapters, and the movie begins with the beginning of the Last Duel, the duel between Matt Damon and Adam Driver. And then it flashes back. It has a title card for chapter 1 that says, "Oh, Matt Damon's character's the truth according to Matt Damon's character." Mm-hmm. And then chapter 2 is the truth according to Adam Driver's character. And then the third one is truth according to Matt Damon's wife's character. Mm-hmm. Matt Damon's character's wife. Jodie Comer's character. There we go. She has a name.
Oh boy.
Yes. So, but yeah, it's Jodie Comer's character. And I find that to be really, really interesting, and the way that it deals with these subtleties and the differences, because those chapters, it's recounting the same stretch of time, but through those characters' perspectives. So Matt Damon's character is kind of all about, you know, his pride and ego and his stature, mm-hmm. and like what he feels he's owed to through the marriage that he has and everything. And then and then Adam Driver's is like the prototype nice guy, incel guy. And then Jodie Comer's is, you know, the female perspective of this whole thing. And it all recounts the same amount of time. And by the end of it, you have a very clear idea of what happened and who, not even necessarily who's telling the truth. It's just, by the end of it, you get an accurate picture of what happened. And it's just really interesting the way that it plays with those perspectives. And mm-hmm. in each chapter, there are very subtle changes to it, to like certain instances, not like the event that is the catalyst of the story, but like little like greetings between characters are told are completely different in different versions of it. Yeah, which I found really interesting.
One of my favorites is there's a dinner scene between Matt Damon and Jodie Comer and Matt Damon's mother.
Yes.
And in his perspective, he is like really sick and he's like coughing throughout the entire thing.
Yeah.
And just looks really pathetic.
Yep.
But he's like soldiering through it, and he's trying to, be all brave and whatever.
Right.
And then when it goes to her perspective, he's just fine.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with him.
Yeah.
That was really, that I really liked.
Yeah, same here. And it's, there was another, there's an emphasis on, Matt Damon saving Adam Driver's life in his segment. And then there's literally nothing of that in the other segments. And it's so interesting the way that each section kind of has its own kind of central theme that we'll dig into in spoilers, but it is very much contingent on the perception of the focal character in that section. And I just found that to be just really, really interesting, the way that it comes together. And I'll save that point for spoilers that I was about to make, because it's sort of spoilery, but it's a really interesting movie in that respect. Very kind of shades of Rashomon, which you haven't seen Rashomon yet, have you?
Not yet.
Okay.
But I have heard that a lot. The comparisons.
Right. Yeah. I'm just, spoiler, I'm thinking ahead to Ebert.
I kind of figured you would be.
Yeah. Yep. Because I just discreetly checked, and Gladiator is not on the list that I could see. Yep. Which is a shame, because I definitely need to watch that again. Not that I'm not allowed to, but but yeah. So performances. How did you feel about the performances before we go into spoilers and everything? I feel like we're kind of brief, but yeah, how did you feel about it?
I think they were pretty good overall. Jodie Comer, I think, is obviously the MVP.
Yeah.
She has so many different arcs throughout each section.
Yeah.
And then obviously she has her own, and you see just a totally different side to her. And she's fantastic. Yeah. I have not watched Killing Eve, so I don't know if I have seen her in too much.
I haven't either. This. I've heard amazing things about Killing Eve.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh.
So yeah, I was really, I loved her performance here.
Nice. Yeah, I think that she was definitely the standout. There was a little, Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, they don't have a lot of screen time together, and it's pretty, Ben Affleck is, his wardrobe and his makeup and everything looks... His hair, yeah, is, very loud and flamboyant, and I don't understand, what the significance of that was. But I also kind of felt a little bit okay, when they have the one of their scenes together, their first scene together, maybe this is me projecting, but it was just it kind of felt oh, look, these two are together again on screen. So yeah, I felt like that was a little bit much, but how did you feel about Ben Affleck in general in the movie?
I thought he was a lot of fun.
Nice. Okay.
His character is just so bombastic and weird.
Yeah.
That he kind of stands out amongst the rest of them. Because everyone else is just so self-serious, and he's just he doesn't give a shit most of the time.
Yeah, that's true. I think that rewatching it, I might key into his performance a little bit more, but every time he was on screen, I was just this is a caricature, and maybe that's the point. Maybe that's supposed to be what the case was and everything, but also it just kind of feels like this is just a little bit too much, just a tiny bit too much.
Sure. He is, I will say, he is the one character that is consistent throughout each of their stories.
That's true.
He is the same person.
That's true.
So I don't know what that says about him.
Right. Very true. Very true. And then, Matt Damon and Adam Driver. How did you feel about their performances?
I don't know if I would say that this is, the best Adam Driver performance or near the best, but he wasn't bad.
Nice.
He was fine.
Nice.
I was listening to, what is it? The Next Best Picture podcast. Next Best Picture podcast.
Is that the one where they do 1 week is a movie that's kind of similar to a new release, and the next week is the new release?
Not exactly.
Okay.
They do all kinds of shit.
Okay. Don't listen to them. Listen to us.
But they were saying Matt Damon doesn't totally feel like someone who fits in a period piece, like a medieval kind of movie, you know? And to some extent, I agree with that. I mean, I think it was fine in this. Nothing, you know, not his best. But I don't know.
I can kind of see that, and my kind of rationalization is that I think that kind of works in the movie's favor a little bit because he is this prideful, like, warrior bravado kind of person in his perspective. And then we obviously get a different perspective when we have other characters kind of viewing him and everything. And I think that might work. Like I said, I don't know if I necessarily agree. I can kind of see the point that they're making. But I think that I think that may kind of work in the favor of kind of skewing the perspectives in the latter parts of the movie. Or maybe I'm making excuses for it. I don't know.
Do you think that someone else should have played him? Him or Matt Ben Affleck?
Oh yeah.
Like, I don't know why they felt the need to be in this movie.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's true. Ben Affleck, I'm not sure. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure. But I mean, yeah, you know, I'm sure that as soon as we finish recording, I'll think of someone that would be perfect for the Matt Damon role in this. But I'm thinking like it would have to be someone that can play both sides of it, which Matt Damon does pretty respectively, respectfully, but like having that kind of bravado, like I said, and then also playing the kind of not sheepish, but like kind of a someone who isn't taken as seriously as he thinks he is,
like a low status kind of guy.
Yeah. And like I think that if you could find someone that can kind of balance that through the movie, I think that would be really interesting. But I can't think of anyone off the top of my head.
I mean, granted, I think he was fine. I don't have any problems with his performance. I just, like, you know, certain actors, they just have faces that kind of fit into this time period better than others, you know?
True.
And Adam Driver, I think, is one of those.
Yeah.
But
I agree.
I don't know. I just wanted to get your perspective.
Yeah. And I'm sorry that I disappointed. But yeah, I think that I don't think Matt Damon or Adam Driver or Ben Affleck or anyone in the film, like, I don't think that they drag it down. I'll say that.
Right.
It could maybe be better, but I think that what we got was pretty solid and enjoyable for me. And yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. How did you feel about the action, which isn't that much in it or anything, but like there are kind of big kind of battle scenes that are like more skirmishes than anything.
Yeah.
But how'd you feel about the way that was shown in relation to Ridley Scott's past work, namely Gladiator?
Yeah, really well done. The titular duel was just brutal.
Yes.
Like, just really rough. If you liked the Gladiator scenes in Gladiator, you'll know what you're in for in this.
Yeah.
And not having seen the trailer, I was not prepared for that.
Yeah. Same here.
So it's a tough watch.
Yeah. It's intense.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's intense. Yeah. And it's not like glamorous or glorified or anything to an extent.
No.
It's brutal. It's very brutal. Yeah. Do you want to go into spoilers for The Last Duel? Any parting thoughts for The Last Duel?
How'd you feel about the kid that played the king?
Alex Lothar.
Yeah.
I mean, I am a fan of his from his one episode of Black Mirror.
Yeah.
Did you see that by chance? Okay, so he plays a teenager who, in an episode, someone hacks his computer and takes video of him masturbating to porn. And so they coerce him into like it's like this whole cabal that like coerces people that they have their indiscretions on file, coerce them to do horrific acts. Like they coerce him and the guy who played Bronn in Game of Thrones to team up to rob a bank. And it's like, it's intense. There's an amazing like twist to it and everything. It's called Shut Up and Dance from season 3. But anyway, the whole movie, I was like, where do I know him from? And then it clicked with me when I was recording my Patreon review for it. And like, I was like, oh yeah. And I think he did a fine job. Like he played that bratty child king really well. And I think that's, honestly, I kind of think that's a little hard to come by, because instinctively people would probably compare it to Joffrey in Game of Thrones. But I think he did well. What did you think?
I thought he was really fun. It's just kind of funny how, I don't know how old Matt Damon or Ben Affleck are, but to see them, just bowing down and to groveling at this little teenage punk. It's just kind of funny.
Absolutely.
And it just kind of goes to show like how screwed up the patriarchy is. That it's all just these weird guys. And this is a very female centric movie, believe it or not. And just how terrible men are, which 100% tracks.
Totally. And like, I have been kind of fearful to read reviews and everything, partly because I wanted to get my review out there and everything, which I didn't end up writing a review, but this suffices. Sure. But I'm very curious to see how people react to it. In particular, I'm very curious what people who I have blocked on Twitter would think of it. Because it seems like it is a very much a type of movie where certain people would just be like the people who didn't see the 2016 Ghostbusters. They would probably have a problem with this movie. Which they're children. It's dumb. Not to completely disregard an entire viewpoint, but also to completely disregard an entire viewpoint.
When your viewpoint is garbage.
Exactly. And not based on, it's just, I could go on rants, and I have gone on rants and everything. But oh God. Anyway, The Last Duel in theaters now. So, do you want to go into spoilers for The Last Duel?
Sure.
All right, I'm going to play a clip from the trailer, and then when we come back, we're going to be spoiling The Last Duel. If you want to skip this section, check the show notes for timestamps to jump ahead to our review of Mass. So here is a clip from the trailer for The Last Duel.
I say before all of you, I spoke the truth.
A most unspeakable charge has been brought against you.
Jacques Legris entered our home. He attacked me.
The accusation is false.
I am telling the truth.
The truth does not matter. There is only the power of men.
This should be settled quietly.
I'm innocent!
All right, so spoilers on for The Last Duel. Ben, how do you feel about going chapter by chapter and kind of talking about each specific perspective?
Yeah.
Okay. So the first chapter is Matt Damon's, and that is kind of all about his bravado, his pride. He's kind of depicted as this warrior knight who he goes rogue a little bit and saves lives and everything. It's very, very brash and very kind of heightened. How did you feel about his whole section and everything?
I think it was smart to start with it, to open the film with it. And you also, in addition to the characterizations that you gave, you also get the perspective that he's been like wronged out of a bunch of things, like the land debate. And you get the impression that he is sticking up for Jodie Comer because he loves her and because it's the right thing to do.
Like that kind of counsel he has at the end of his section. Yeah. And the way that is flipped around later is really, really interesting to me. Yeah. Yeah. And I also agree. I think that it's very smart to open it with that because that is playing into tropes of the genre and tropes of like these types of movies. And so in doing that, like it's setting the stage for like, okay, yeah. And, this is what we're expecting from it. And the thing I found really interesting was that, this, like the only, how to phrase it, the only kind of not experience, but the only kind of knowledge we have of the rape is secondhand by Jodie Comer's character to Matt Damon.
Yeah.
And I found that to be so interesting because, I mean, I don't know how this is going to make me sound, but the movie isn't presented as a mystery. It's not presented as like, oh, what really happened? It's more like these are the perspectives of people who have experienced or have knowledge of what happened. But throughout the movie, at least after that first segment, I was wondering, like, is she covering up an affair? Like, is that what it's doing? And that's kind of by design because Adam Driver's section is very romantic in a weird, twisted, messed up way.
Yeah.
And so, like, I found that to be really interesting, just my experience, because I went through the movie thinking, like, I wonder if there's going to be, like, some kind of secret at play here or something, and that's going to recontextualize who we think should win the duel and everything. And, like, I feel like that is a trap that was set for people like me, and to kind of have this expectation and then just have that flipped on its ear to have this pretty straightforward, honest kind of story with what happened and everything. So I just found that to be really, really interesting. And I don't mean to jump ahead to other sections, but it all starts with Matt Damon's section. So yeah. How did you feel about that whole thing?
I think I was also kind of set up to think that something else was going on, that we weren't seeing. Something like her having an affair or her like plotting to kill him or something. Right.
Is that reflective of poorly on us, or is it manipulative of the film, or is it just a benchmark of the patriarchal society that we live in and that everyone lives in?
Could be all of the above.
Okay.
Could be like our expectations with the genre and the kind of medieval intrigue, kind of Game of Thrones-ish setting. Yeah,
that's true. Yeah. I think it is kind of a cultural thing with pop culture with this type of story also is a factor. Yeah. So, any other thoughts on Matt Damon? We're kind of breezing through that.
No.
Okay. Let's see. I thought there was something else in Matt Damon's, section, but I can't remember. But, just again, the way that it's completely switched around by the time we get to Jodie Comer's section, where it's like his response to her is like atrocious and horrifying. So that's interesting. We'll get to that. But Adam Driver, that section was so interesting to me. And it also kind of seems like it is maybe the weakest written section for me. In that it kind of seems a little bit, in theory, it should seem like it's a little bit hard to swallow that he would kind of just have this completely baseless feeling of like mutual attraction with her. And I don't know if it's necessarily supposed to be that he feels like he has convinced himself that there's a mutual attraction.
Yeah.
And that is just really, really interesting to me. How'd you feel about Adam Driver's section?
I think this is kind of where the little subtle differences are really effective. Especially there's a scene where the three of them meet at like a party or something in a courtyard.
Yes.
And the two of them they had an argument and they start to make up. And then there's a part where, from his perspective, Matt Damon and Jodie Comer are dancing and she's smiling at him. But actually before that, even when they are like introducing each other, and she kisses him and it kind of lingers. And then, kind of jumping ahead from her perspective, it's just this quick little thing.
Yeah.
But for him, it lasts so much longer and has so much more meaning.
Yeah.
And then when they're dancing and she keeps looking at him and smiling, and then we learn later that she's just kind of like, her and Matt Damon are literally just talking about like, what a dumbass, what a douchebag this guy is.
Yep.
So that was where that's really where you start to notice like that this is how this movie is going to go. And this is where you should start to pick up on these little things. Yeah.
And in addition to that, when they're introduced in the courtyard, when Matt Damon and Adam Driver kind of make amends, I found that to be really interesting because in Matt Damon's version, he had, I don't remember the exact line, but it's something like super like diplomatic and like big and performative, like, oh, we've now broken bread and you know, I'm Matt Damon, or whatever. But then Adam Driver, I think if I remember correctly, Adam Driver says that line in his section, and then in Jodie Comer's, they're like a completely different person says it. And I just found that to be just so interesting because that is also playing into the ego of these men and the kind of the way that, you know, their perception of what happened and their perception of their encounters always kind of fall back on like their soul experience with it.
Yeah.
And there's such an emptiness or lack of compassion, or in some cases like Matt Damon's, there's like this faux compassion or this kind of like thing where it's performative compassion in his perspective. And then Adam Driver has just completely blocked out any knowledge of what he did in terms of it being like he has convinced himself that it was a mutual thing.
Yeah. Even
though it is 100% not mutual in his perspective or Jodie Comer's.
Right.
And just I found that to be kind of terrifying and really, really delicately written in a kind of really messed up way. And in the way it kind of portrays that cognitive dissonance and lack of accountability or acceptability of what someone has done.
And to kind of go along with that, you get a lot more scenes where it's just Adam Driver, like with Ben Affleck, say.
Yeah.
And he is very, I mean, nobody else, we don't get either any of these scenes in anybody else's perspective, so we don't know if it's the truth or not.
Yeah.
But he comes across as more willing to like help out Matt Damon or be more sympathetic towards him. Like he tries to get his debts called off, or he tries to say that something isn't like as big of a deal.
Right.
You know, so
you heard it here from Ben. Adam Driver's character is good dude. Good dude.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
I get what you're saying. I'm obviously joking.
Well, and also like those scenes with him and Ben Affleck, they set up the rape scene that's later. You know, when he's in the bedroom with those, I don't know, prostitutes or whatever,
concubines.
Sure.
Yeah.
And he does like the exact same thing that he does with Jodie Comer. He does this kind of playful, don't come after me.
Right. And he picks her up over his shoulder and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And you see that mirrored very much so later with him and Jodie Comer.
That's right.
And then it's totally different when she has it. But,
yeah. And just like the subtle things like her removing her shoes.
Yes.
And just like those little bits and pieces that in his mind are invitational. And yeah, that's it's disturbing.
What is probably even more disturbing is that like even when they do have sex, she's still not totally going along with it. She's still saying like no in
his perspective.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's not as forceful. It's not as rapey.
Right. Yeah.
So it's not, it still doesn't make him look like a good dude.
Right. It doesn't, I would argue that it doesn't even really give him that kind of plausible deniability that I think that his perspective is supposed to give or would give in a less nuanced story. But in having that scene with him, with Ben Affleck and the women, having that set up this playful like thing, like you said, we don't know how true that is. We don't know how much that woman in that scene was resisting in truth, or if that was a true depiction of it. But it has this sense of entitlement for Adam Driver's character that he believes on one hand that there is a connection that he has with Marguerite, and in having that connection, he is due to have like an encounter with her, regardless of her say, which is really messed up and disturbing. And sadly, it's still a thing. It's something that, yeah, it's really messed up. And then, so having her say no and having her repeat no and everything in his perspective makes it so much more cold and chilling, because we're seeing his perspective of what's happened, but we're also seeing that his perspective isn't this like romanticized thing entirely. It is this very negative thing that's happened that he has convinced himself is not as negative as it could, even though through the fact that it's his perspective, he has that perspective that we saw. And so that just makes it just very cold and disturbing and just rough. Yes. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and then Jodie Comer, her section. Yeah. I really, really like you said, I think you said this. I really like that they saved that for last. And I think that is obviously calculated. And I love that they preface that with the truth according to Marguerite, or like what actually happened. And like, you just see the way that her stature in this kind of hierarchy and everything is suboptimal. Yes. And how did you feel about that? It's
I think they even say like this rape matter isn't what was the phrasing that they use? It's not a
he has his whole life ahead of him.
Oh boy.
Yeah. He boys will be boys. Yeah. You're gonna ruin his life. Fucking God.
He's gotta be elected to the Supreme Court.
Right. Look at his calendars.
Yeah.
Jesus. Suspended from Twitter.
They say it was like one of the clergy or someone on the court or someone says to Matt Damon, like, it's not a marital issue, it's a property issue. I'm paraphrasing that, something like that.
That's which right.
Feels very accurate, unfortunately.
Yes.
But and kind of to go along with that, and I don't remember exactly this, but they talked about this in the other podcasts that I listened to. But they say like the scene where Matt Damon and Jodie Comer meet and are introduced, it's this kind of pseudo romantic kind of thing where they have this chemistry together.
Yeah.
And
Matt Damon or
Matt Damon
Okay.
and Jodie Comer.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in her perspective, they like don't talk at all or they barely talk.
Yep.
So that's just another really great detail.
Yeah. And there's such a big emphasis paid on the dowry that he's due for that. And it's just that when it's her perspective again, he comes across as like he only cares, he's so vengeful about this dowry that he doesn't get. Yeah.
And he doesn't give a shit about her.
Right.
Like there's this extended kind of sequence where she goes out to this town and buys this dress so that he will like it, and I don't know, to impress him to when he's like coming home from battle or whatever.
Yeah.
And he just like gives this look to her when he sees it because like it's showing too much skin or something.
Right.
And
jeez.
Yeah. It gets to the point where like by the time the duel actually happens, like you're not rooting for either one of them to win.
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of are rooting for Matt Damon because if he loses, then she's going to be killed.
Right.
But that's it.
Yeah.
You know,
that just reminds me of the tagline for Alien versus Predator. Whoever wins, we lose. But yeah, and they do set that up pretty obviously heavily. That's a big point of it. And that's even really fascinating in that he doesn't he doesn't even care or anything that, oh, she'll die if he dies. And it's part his bravado, part his pride and everything. And yeah, so I mean, I was kind of rooting for him, but also, you know, I'd be okay if, you know, they both, you know, killed each other.
Sure.
The death of Adam Driver's character, though.
Oh, God.
Oh,
speaking of brutal. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And what I love about it is the brutality isn't gratuitous or isn't a cheerful. It's not like a big gladiator moment. It's not a are you not entertained moment. It's because you know that like the kind of perspective. I mean, I'm glad he died, but also it's like the only triumph for Matt Damon's character is his stature, his pride, his ego. It has nothing to do with Jodie Comer's character. And I found that to be really interesting in terms of the writing and the way that it presented it at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else in spoilers?
I guess I probably could have mentioned this in non-spoilers, but this made me want to read the book that it's based on. Yeah,
I didn't do any research or anything. Like, I'm curious, like, what the true story is, because it's based on a true story in a book. Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of curious. Yeah. Well, I think that's our review of The Last Duel. Check it out in theaters and everything. I also have a brief review of it on Patreon at the $5 level. And then next up now, we're going to talk about Mass. Are you still good to talk about Mass?
Let's talk about Mass.
All right. Awesome. Yeah. Do you need a break or anything?
Nope.
Okay. All right. So Mass.
We want to know how this happened. We need your help with that.
I'm willing to help.
When you talk about blame on your part, I want to know what you're referring to.
That's very hard to answer.
Well, please try.
It's not just one thing.
Tell me about your son.
What would you like to know?
Everything. I want to know everything.
Why?
Why do I want to know about your son? Because he killed mine.
It's not our fault, Richard.
All right, so Mass, let me bring it up here, is the IFJA winner of the award that I should have, I should know. Okay, so IFJ, the group that Ben and I are both members of, the Indiana Film Journalists Association, we chose Mass as the Best Special Presentation Award at the IFJ Award for Best Special Presentation at 2021's Heartland Film Festival. So Mass is written and directed by Fran Kranz, who was in the Cabin in the Woods and Dark Tower. And it stars Jason Isaacs, Martha Plimpton, Ann Dowd, and Reed Birney. Yes, okay. Reed Birney. And the plot summary, courtesy of IMDb, is aftermath of a violent tragedy that affects the lives of two couples in different ways. Oh, okay. Well, that was very vague. So this movie had been on my radar because I like Fran Kranz as an actor. Like, I think he does a good job in the things that I've seen him in that aren't adapted from Stephen King properties. But he has a certain kind of charisma. So knowing that he had a movie that he wrote and directed about the aftermath of a school shooting and characters, like two families kind of reckoning with that, had me very interested. And to my knowledge, this had a big presence at Sundance earlier this year. And so it was showing at Heartland, and I was very excited about it, and I watched it and I liked it. Ben, how did you feel about Mass? What were your expectations and everything?
Yeah, I had heard good things out of Sundance. Mm-hmm. There's one or two people that I follow on Letterboxd who I feel like I regularly see their updated 2021 lists.
Yeah.
And Mass is like at or near the top of those. So I was pretty conscious of it from that, but not much otherwise.
Sure.
I knew the cast. I still have not seen the trailer.
Me neither.
I don't think I even really knew what it was about.
Interesting.
And I was interested. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like near the top of my list for Heartland when it was announced that it would be showing here, but I saw that the IFJ said that we would be able to get a screener for it, so I was able to get it, and I watched it and was blown away.
Yes.
I don't believe that I knew of Fran Kranz as an actor.
Okay.
So
so you didn't see The Dark Tower?
No.
Okay. He's really good. He was also in he was in a movie that I actually saw at Heartland a few years ago. I think it was the he was also in The Village in Training Day. But he was in The Truth About Lies, which I thought was okay, but he did a good job. It's kind of a little bit of a comedy about a guy who kind of lies his way into I think a relationship with a woman, which is icky and everything, but it's kind of farcical, but he did well in it.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, sorry.
But yeah, this just blew me away on just almost every level.
Yeah.
There's just so much to love about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really glad that I was able to see it. It's as of right now, it's definitely in my top 10 for the end of the year, but I don't know exactly where it'll be just yet.
Yeah. I'm going to echo those sentiments as well. This movie definitely, like, it is one of those experiences where I'm so absorbed in it, and this is going to sound so hacky, but it is a powerhouse in terms of performances. There were multiple times where I kind of stopped and I was like, Ann Dowd, man.
Yep.
I mean, just amazing. Like, all four of the central characters are, like, the actors are really good, but like Ann Dowd just gives this this really, really kind of troubled below the surface, but pleasant, but reserved and hurt. And with this misguided kind of hurt as well, and guilt. And it is just such a layered performance. And like the other actors in it are also doing so much heavy lifting in terms of presence and their performances, that it is like throughout the movie, I was like, obviously this is an actor writing and directing this movie, because this is an actor movie.
This is an actor's showcase.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah, and you would not think that a 2-hour movie that almost exclusively takes place in one room, with no music, no like flashbacks, no cutaways, with such a dark subject matter, you would not think that a movie like that would be so incredible, right? But it finds a way.
Oh yeah. It's something that's just, it felt like a very special window into just this completely raw and just unbelievably and profoundly tragic and natural grief and pain with these characters. And it's just, it is so hard to watch at times, but also just so engaging, and it's a rough one. It's a little bit draining,
and yet it's not super duper dark. You know, there are some lighter moments. There are some just really beautiful. Just the dialogue is just so incredible. And
absolutely.
Fran Kranz just has such a it feels like he knows these characters almost personally. Like it feels like such a realistic conversation that you could absolutely see happening in real life.
Absolutely.
There aren't any like leaps in character motivations or emotions. It all just unfolds really naturally.
Absolutely. That's the perfect word for it, because it is such a natural script. The dialogue is so authentic, and the way that it just counts the way that it divulges the information to us is just so, like, you feel like a fly on the wall. Like it goes a long stretch where they don't even necessarily say what happened.
Yes.
It's just communicated through subtext and through like visual like cues in the body language and everything. And what I love about it is it also doesn't, once it's kind of, I hesitate to say once it's revealed, because it's not really a mystery or anything by any stretch, but once it's kind of like revealed,
it's out in the open.
Yeah. There you go. Once it's out in the open, we then get, it continues to have that naturalistic subtext fueled feel to the dialogue, in that we have like a brief like reference to Jason Isaacs, his character's activism and everything. And we have Martha Plimpton's kind of just wanting to know, like wanting to know specifics about the upbringing and everything. And it is incredibly well written, in terms of dialogue and just telling us the story through body language and subtext. It's amazing.
Plus, you go into it, I guess maybe you don't know this at the beginning, because like we said, you don't know exactly what it's about until a little bit later. But once you meet these people, you kind of you get these kind of preconceived notions about like who they are and what kind of arc they will go through. Like Martha, the mother of a child who was murdered, you kind of expect her to be this kind of fiery, not really willing to mend bridges,
Right.
that kind of character. And then Jason Isaacs, his character, you just kind of feel like he's just kind of like a peacemaker almost.
Yeah.
Like he feels like he's willing to hear out the other side. And then
He seems like he's kind of seeking a certain catharsis that maybe is not attainable, but he's at least putting a certain amount of effort toward that.
Right. Yes.
Even if it's minimal effort.
But then his kind of journey throughout this almost gets to be the angriest.
Mhm.
Like I would say he gets angrier than Martha Plimpton in some scenes.
Yeah.
And then, Ann Dowd, you just kind of get this just from her presence because it's Ann Dowd, but she kind of comes across as this kind of nurturing, I guess, kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to Ann Dowd. Are you talking about Ann Dowd or Martha Plimpton? Okay,
Ann Dowd.
Ann Dowd. Okay, I was totally paying attention. I get nurturing is kind of that.
Gentle, I guess.
Yeah.
Kind of, her whole demeanor.
Yeah.
And then Reed Birney, he's interesting. His character, because he feels like he's very like no nonsense, kind of give him answers and try to get out of here.
Yeah.
Which is interesting in its own right. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that kind of speaks to, or kind of tells, wow, this was filmed in 14 days, kind of tells this own story about the kind of nature of their relationship and how it's been affected by this, horrible tragedy and everything. And there's references to kind of like I don't want to say like media circus or anything, but the backlash, the response to it. And there's
the
some
lawsuits.
Yeah. And there's like this profound idea that we'll talk about a little bit in spoilers, but just like how they say, like they don't have like vigils for the shooter.
Right.
And so like that, it's just a perspective that I wasn't prepared to be kind of confronted with. And it's a powerful kind of sentiment. Like, yes, this family was irrevocably changed as well.
Yeah.
And, it's as freaking commonplace as these tragedies are and everything, you don't really, it seems like the media doesn't really pay attention, obviously, to the other side of it, the family of the other side.
Yes.
And
when you do hear about the parents of these kids, you get this, kind of knee-jerk portrait of who these parents are, and you don't really give them a second thought. So I really love how Fran Kranz just makes them just as three-dimensional as the other side. He doesn't make them villains. He doesn't try to make them victims as well. I guess he does to some extent.
Yeah, but he makes all of them really three-dimensional.
Yes.
And everything. So yeah. Do you want to talk about spoilers? Because I don't know, is there anything really to spoil?
Not really.
Okay.
I don't think there is.
Okay. Well, I'm going to play a clip from the trailer and then
before we do that, do you have who was your favorite performance?
Okay. I thought you were going to go a different route. I've got to say Ann Dowd, honestly. I love Jason Isaacs, though. And Martha Plimpton did like an incredible job of like that seething anger and just with like steeped in confusion and just wanting to know and wanting to hold. Her kind of perspective is that she wants to hold Ann Dowd and the father accountable for what happened to her son. And what comes out in the course of the movie is this understanding of like what everyone's been through in this tragedy. And it's really remarkable storytelling. Reed Birney, he was good too. But
yes.
But yeah, I would say, I mean, Ann Dowd and Jason Isaacs both were my preferred or my favorite performances of the movie. How about you?
My first reaction would probably be Jason Isaacs, but ask me on a different day and it will probably be a different answer.
Yeah.
Everyone here is just so incredible.
Yeah.
I heard someone talking about this and they brought up a good point that Reed Birney feels like his character feels like he goes through the least, the smallest change throughout the movie, which I can definitely see. And I think that's interesting as well.
Yeah.
Because he still gives an incredible performance and he feels like a real person and a real character, but he just doesn't, it feels like he's done all of his grieving and all of his, he has dealt with all of this.
Yeah. His processing of it.
Yes. Internally before the movie even begins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. Okay. Well, yeah. Mass is amazing.
Yes.
I don't think we're going to do a spoiler section, but yeah, we in our organization, the organization that we're part of, the IFJ, we picked it as the IFJ award at Heartland, and with good reason, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't get to see one or two of the others that could have possibly contended with this, but this was pretty close to a no-brainer.
Nice.
The one other thing that I wanted to get your perspective on, and I don't think this is a spoiler, but it's like right at the end of the movie when they are about to leave and the choir starts singing at the church.
Yeah.
Maybe this is a little bit of a nitpick, and I'll say that it does not ruin the movie for me, or the ending at all for me. But I wanted to get your perspective on that moment. Was it a little heavy-handed for you, or?
I don't think so. I think that it worked for me, because it felt kind of like a, not embrace of youthful energy or anything, but it just seemed like it was a big, I think in contrast to the rest of the movie, really not having any music or any score aside from the piano playing. I think that bringing that out, the choir singing and everything, definitely creates in it this sense of maybe not closure, but the sense of moving forward, or the sense of processing the grief that they're experiencing, like beginning the process of working through their grief and being able to see the other side of things, or being able to see other people's grief as similar to their own and everything, and not holding on to that guilt or that blame or anything.
Okay.
So yeah, I think it worked.
Okay.
Yeah. How did you feel about it?
Yeah, I think it was a little heavy-handed for me at first. Maybe if I revisit it, it'll change.
Sure.
But like I said, it doesn't ruin the movie. It doesn't. I just thought it was a little much.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. All right. Well, yeah, that's our review of Mass, and yeah, we're gonna kind of close out the episode with Potpourri. I have a couple of things, and Ben, I think the plan is for you to kind of run through some stuff you saw at Heartland.
Okay.
I will start with one thing that I saw at Heartland. The French Dispatch.
Yes.
So, so I'll get us kicked off, and then you do yours, and I'll round us out with my Halloween Kills thoughts. So, The French Dispatch, I saw it at a screening at Heartland. This was a big deal for Heartland. It was the first time they ever had a Wes Anderson movie. It's a high profile movie. Mm-hmm. It's a big movie. And yeah, we had talked about doing a Wes Anderson retrospective, but then, like everything, it fell apart. But I like Wes Anderson for the most part. Like, I really liked Moonrise Kingdom. I liked The Life Aquatic the one time I saw it. And The Grand Budapest Hotel I liked quite a bit.
Yes.
The thing with The French Dispatch is that it is very much a Wes Anderson movie. Mm-hmm. It is his standard diorama, just very quirky, heightened dialogue and just silly visuals and everything. It is very similar in tone to the stuff that he's been working on lately and everything. Aside from Isle of Dogs, because that was kind of unique in and of itself. But I'm thinking like Grand Budapest Hotel and Moonrise Kingdom. But the problem that I have with it, and the thing that really kept it from really speaking to me, was that it is an amalgam, or it is just very similar to Wes Anderson's kind of shtick. Mm-hmm. And that gets very tiring. Very tiring very quickly. And I think that is because he does this. The whole story is about the French Dispatch, a newspaper that it's revealed at the beginning the editor has passed away. And so the story is structured to where they are telling three stories three defining stories of that made it into the French Dispatch throughout its history, which is interesting. That I love. As someone who has an affinity for writing and has an affinity for journalism and everything, I found that to be pretty interesting in theory. What we get is these sectioned off vignettes of these unrelated stories. And then the problem that I have with it is it doesn't connect. It does not connect in a meaningful way. He tries to do something at the end to make it connect. And I appreciate what he was going for, but it was just not enough for me to really find any good in it. Mm-hmm. I will say that in terms of the visual techniques that he employs and everything, it looks really cool. There are some very interesting shots, and the framing of them is really cool and interesting. But for the most part, I just did not like Moonrise Kingdom. The French Dispatch. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And you did not get a chance to see it.
Correct.
Yeah. Are you still looking forward to it?
I think so.
Nice.
I'll check it out.
Nice.
I forget if you had said this or if someone else did, but they said that it's the most Wes Anderson.
Yeah, I didn't say it, but I wholeheartedly endorse that sentiment. Okay. It is. So, okay, I've said this before, but I don't really like to give that much credit to the show Family Guy. Yeah. Because it's background noise for me, really. But they did an episode a couple of seasons ago where the whole premise of it was three directors or something. So they had one story that they had it was like an anthology format. They had one section of the episode be that story from the perspective of a Michael Bay movie. And then one with Quentin Tarantino kind of aesthetic and everything. And then one with Wes Anderson. Uh-huh. And having that semi-fresh in my mind, really exposed just the very, very, I don't know, quirky for the sake of quirky nature of Wes Anderson. Yeah. So I don't know, it's something that is in the French Dispatch, it's almost a parody of itself because it doesn't have enough of the heart to it. Yeah.
I was talking with Evan after he had seen it, and
he hated it.
He said it was like his least emotional film, or there's no emotion to it, or something. I'm paraphrasing. But yeah. Okay.
Yep. So that's my first potpourri.
Now, where did that one screen?
That was at the Toby, which I...
Oh, okay.
Yes, which I saw on your Instagram. That was when you went to a screening at the Toby. That was your first time there?
Yes.
Okay, how did you feel about the Toby? The Toby, for our listeners, is the theater, one of the theaters that is in Newfields, which is like the Indianapolis Museum of Art, but rebranded. The Toby is just a beautiful, beautiful theater. I saw 2001: A Space Odyssey there in 2013. It was like one of the first things I wrote on the website was like, "Oh, I saw Stanley Kubrick. I'm in my mid-20s and I saw a Stanley Kubrick movie, so I know what I'm talking about."
Nice.
Yeah, but yeah.
It's a really nice theater.
Nice.
I kind of wish that I'll talk about this a little bit in a minute, but I wish that I was like sitting closer to the screen, because it would. Oh yeah. There's, from what I could tell, there's not a bad seat in the house.
No, I totally agree. Totally agree. It is one of my favorite places to see a movie in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
It is so. There's a warmth to it that I love it. I love it so much, and especially since I see a lot of like film festival stuff there, and there's like that warmth baked into that experience itself. So
nice.
But yeah, so that's the French Dispatch. Do you want to kind of rapid fire or just talk about some of the stuff that you saw at Heartland?
Sure. So, so the movie that I saw at the Toby was King Richard, which is the new Will Smith movie, directed by Ronaldo Marcus Green, where Will Smith plays Richard Williams, who is the father of Venus and Serena Williams. And it just it's a biopic about his how he brought up Venus and Serena and trained them and coached them, and how they came to be who they are. And I won't talk a whole lot about it, because I'm sure we'll do a review of it when it comes out in November. But I will say I liked it more than I anticipated.
Okay.
It's kind of messy, but it's a crowd pleaser.
Okay. It won like the audience award, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I will say this now. If I had money to put on anything right now, it would be Will Smith for Best Actor.
Really? You think this will be the one?
Yes.
Wow.
He is very good.
Nice. So when I saw the trailer for it, like all I thought was Will Smith really wants that Oscar.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that is.
Yeah. So that's good that he does well in it.
From a cynical perspective, that is a big reason why he is doing this movie, I'm sure.
And this is a tangent, I'm sorry, but my whole thing with him is that I think he's too much of a movie star. So like anytime he does something that is like accent heavy or something that's not his like brand, I guess, just feels so unnatural to me. And
it's kind of funny because, not knowing a whole lot outside of this about Richard Williams, he feels very much like a Muhammad Ali type.
Oh, interesting.
Which is kind of funny because Will Smith played him and almost won an Oscar by playing him. But he's this very like bombastic, outspoken, kind of just a magnetic kind of guy. And Will Smith, he's in pretty much every scene in the movie, and he's very good. And I'm sure we'll talk about it more. But just I say that about him winning just based on like if you were in that room, you would totally understand why. Like go and see this opening night at a packed theater, and you will see why he is a shoo-in for Best Actor.
Interesting.
He is. It's a very funny role, and I wonder how much of his lines were like ad-libbed because they feel kind of. He has these all these like little asides, very Muhammad Ali-esque.
Yeah.
And it almost feels like they were improvised, but I don't know for sure.
Okay.
But anyway, the crowd just ate it all up.
Nice.
It was pretty insane.
Okay. I just so dumb. Like I just picture him just like looking at Venus and be like, "Hey Venus, welcome to Earth." That's dumb. Anyway, continue.
The other one that I saw in the theater was the new Jane Campion movie, The Power of the Dog.
Yes.
Which is coming to Netflix, I think, either in November. I'm pretty sure November. If not November, then sometime in December.
Okay.
Jane Campion directed The Piano, In the Cut, a couple other things that I haven't seen. Most well known for The Piano.
Which is getting a Criterion release.
Yes. Yeah. So this one is kind of a pseudo-Western starring Benedict Cumberbatch, Jesse Plemons, Kirsten Dunst, and Cody Smith-McPhee. And it is, I thought it was very interesting because kind of similar to Cry Macho. It kind of plays with these Western tropes of these like cowboy guys who put up this act to everyone else. But it's not just Benedict Cumberbatch is the lead character, obviously, but it's not just him that's putting up this act. Like the thing that I was most impressed with is that every single one of these characters is either lying to themselves or to everyone else around them. And I thought that was very interesting, the ways that they do that. So maybe I'll save my full thoughts for a full review later down the line when it comes out, when you have a chance to see it.
Nice.
But I was very impressed. I liked it quite a bit. And it is beautiful. Like, try to see this in the theater if you can. Like,
nice.
I think that they try to pass it off as Montana, but it's I think Jane Campion is either from New Zealand or Australia but it looks very much like it's beautiful scenery.
Nice.
So
she's okay. She was born in Wellington, New Zealand, and now lives in Sydney.
So
New South.
The scenery there is just incredible.
Nice.
It does not look very much like Montana or the Montana that I have seen.
Sure.
Very impressed with it. Very excited for everyone to see it. I would recommend it. Saw it at the new Can Theater.
How was that? I didn't make it, but I won't bother with that. But what did you think of the Can?
It's really cool.
Nice.
First time being there. And it's just kind of, it's funny. It's kind of just nestled in between this just really
like residential area.
This neighborhood. And it's really nice. I didn't get a chance to explore the space too much, but from what I could see, it looks really nice. The seats, obviously they don't like recline and all that.
Right.
It's there's no bad seats.
Nice.
So
that's awesome.
Support your local theaters.
Yeah. And I'm super glad that they opened, that they were able to open, because they were set to open right before the pandemic hit and theaters shut down. So that's great. And The Power of the Dog comes out December 1st.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that on Netflix or in theaters?
That
I think it's
is a great question that I personally do not have the answer to.
Because I know, like, we're kind of getting into this season now where the Netflix movies are coming out in theaters for a week or two before they hit Netflix.
Huh. Yeah, I don't know. I might have something here. It looks like December 1st will be Netflix.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
The other one that I saw, I saw a couple others, but I wrote reviews for those for the most part.
Which I'll link to all of them in the show notes of this episode.
But one of the ones that I saw, which I really, really loved, is the new Celine Sciamma movie.
Oh, yes.
Petite, Maman. Plot description, courtesy of Letterboxd. 8-year-old Nellie has just lost her beloved grandmother and is helping her parents clean out her mother's childhood home. She explores the house and the surrounding woods where her mom, Marion, used to play and where she built the treehouse Nellie has heard so much about. One day, her mother suddenly leaves. That is when Nellie meets a girl of her own age in the woods building a treehouse. So, I was very excited for this one because we are on the record as loving Celine Sciamma's Portrait of a Lady on Fire.
Oh, yes.
So I was very excited and very curious for this one. I guess it technically counts as a Heartland viewing because it was only screening in theaters. It wasn't screening virtually for Heartland, but I was able to get a rental screener from the Chicago Film Festival virtually. So I watched it that way. So I'm counting it as both.
Yeah.
But I loved this one. I wasn't sure exactly what to expect because I didn't know anything about the plot going into it.
Right.
But I think it's really smart and really well done. It tells a story about grief that I don't know if I have ever seen in this way before. Like
interesting.
It's about this child's perspective of grief and how kids not only process grief themselves, but how they view their parents processing grief and how they can help their parents process that grief. And the way that she does it is just so interesting to me and so smartly done that I was just blown away by it. I hesitate to talk any more about the plot because I feel like I don't want to give away how she does it.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's so well done. It's in my top 10 at the moment.
That's awesome.
And the more that I think about it, the higher it's gonna go.
Nice. What's it called again?
Petite Maman.
Okay. Nice. Yeah. Obviously, I loved Portrait of a Lady on Fire, so I'm very curious to see what she has done next.
Yes, it's a neon release. I don't know if a release date has been set yet, but it's playing at a bunch of festivals right now. If you can find a way to screen it virtually, I would highly recommend it.
Nice. Yeah, I will be on the lookout for it. Yeah, cool. Nice. Any other dispatches from Heartland, or do you want me to round us out?
I will talk about Alien on Stage when we do our Ebert episode.
Nice.
I guess I watched one called Escape from Pretoria because I saw that it had Daniel Radcliffe in it.
Okay.
It's fine. It's he plays this South African guy in the 70s or 80s, late 1978, who obviously it's South Africa. It's during apartheid,
right? And
he is this guy who does not support apartheid, so he goes to jail, and pretty much all of it is how he is trying to escape from jail.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know, it's well done. There's some really tense scenes, but not much more than that.
Okay.
I mean, it's fine. I'm glad I watched it, but yeah.
Nice.
It was good.
Awesome. Okay. Well, yeah, I will link to all of your reviews and everything in the show notes of this episode. Do you mind if I round us out with a quick potpourri for something I saw recently?
Sure.
Okay. So to round us out, I had the privilege of watching Halloween Kills. There is going to be a commentary track on the $5 Patreon level at some point in the near future, but just to give kind of an overview, I enjoyed Halloween Kills quite a bit. It does some things that I feel like there's like one full subplot that could have just been completely taken out and replaced with something a little bit better, especially for the Judy Greer character. But overall, what you go into Halloween Kills for is the kills, and the violence is just insane, crazy stuff. Like there are certain kills that I had just like this disturbed glee on my face, and like because there's some that are just so off the wall that I could not stop myself from just laughing in the moment, which was a lot of fun, a lot of kind of entertaining qualities to that. One thing that I really liked was that I have such a weird relationship with the idea of Michael Myers like setting up these tableaus and everything, and like having like in the original Halloween, he takes a headstone and puts it in a bedroom with the dead body kind of laid across the bed. And I'm just like, okay, that's just weird. But we actually see in Halloween Kills, like we see him kind of in the process of making one. And it's weird, but it's also really interesting. And so I don't know. I liked it. And it sets the stage for next year's Halloween Ends in a unique way, and makes me excited. I liked it. Yeah. So that's Halloween Kills. It's in theaters and on Peacock, and the commentary will soon be on the Patreon for $5 and above patrons. So yeah, that's all I've got. Ben, any parting thoughts, or should we call it an evening?
No, I don't think so. Get those ratings in there, people. Apple Podcasts.
Yes. I
ratings
love this
and
idea.
Reviews.
Yes, preferably 5 stars, and preferably nice reviews. But yeah, just go to that on Apple Podcasts, and do that. And then we will resurrect Summer of Sandler. We'll resurrect Summer of Sandler when we hit 200 ratings and 150 reviews.
You got it.
Yes. Oh,
well,
geez.
I'm gonna make one of those like grade school tote board kind of things with the thermometer.
Nice. I love that. Yes. All right. Well, that'll do it for this episode of The Obsessive Viewer. Next time, we're going to be talking about Denis Villeneuve's Dune, which is coming out this week. And we will be talking about that next week. If you are too antsy to get to that, read my review of Dune, which is on the website now. And I have a blurb or a small review in a Patreon potpourri section on the $5 level of Patreon. So yeah, having said all that, thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you next time. And now, here's a short clip from our Patreon exclusive RSS feed. To hear the full clip and more exclusive Patreon content, go to patreon.com/obsessiveviewer and become a patron at the minimum rate of $1 per month. Thank you and enjoy. It's fine. It was it was really heavy-handed the way that the first episode, the second that she sees his image, she's like, "Oh, cute." It's like, okay, you're laying it on a little bit thick. Like, let's introduce them and let's have them have chemistry on screen before you lay the groundwork of them having a romantic relationship. And even with the time jump between the first episode and the second episode, it still just feels like a little bit sloppy in the writing, that it's like, okay, suddenly we have to play catch up with these two characters having a relationship and everything, when they could have laid the groundwork a little bit better rather than just demonstrate to us through very straightforward dialogue that she finds him attractive. Like that, I just feel like there could have been a lot more there in that first episode and then extending into the second episode.
The Obsessive Viewer podcast is edited and produced by Matt Hurt and presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. For a full archive of our episodes, go to ObsessiveViewer.com/OV archive. You can also like our Facebook page and join the OV Facebook group at facebook.com/TheObsessiveViewer, and follow us on Twitter at ObsessiveViewer and at ObsessiveTiny, and follow our recurring co-hosts at I am Mike White, that's me, at R.A. Feckus, and at Burger_Lurker. If you enjoy the show, please take a couple minutes to leave us a rating and a quick review on Apple Podcasts. This is the easiest way to support what we do, and all it costs is a little bit of your time. If you'd like to donate to the podcast, you can make a PayPal donation at obsessiveviewer.com/donate, or support us on Patreon for recurring donations and access to commentary tracks and B-roll audio recorded exclusively for patrons at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. Every donation goes toward paying the fees to keep the podcast running and is greatly appreciated. For official Obsessive Viewer merch, including shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more, visit our TeePublic store. You can find a link to the store in the show notes of this episode and at obsessiveviewer.com/donate. Or you can simply search for Obsessive Viewer at teepublic.com, T-E-E, public.com. For information about our annual live event showcasing short horror films from local filmmakers, check out shocktoberInIrvington.com. And for an archive of all our events, as well as news about potential future events, head over to obsessiveviewer.com/live. For more podcast content, you can find Anthology, Matt's solo podcast covering The Twilight Zone and other classic and contemporary science fiction anthology TV shows at anthologypod.com and on Twitter at OVAnthologyPod. You can also find Tower Junkies, a podcast where Matt and Tiny share their love of all things Stephen King and his magnum opus, The Dark Tower series, at towerjunkiespod.com and at towerjunkiespod on Twitter. And finally, check out The Secular Perspective, Tiny's side project podcast, which tackles current events and life's big questions from the perspective of secular hosts Chad and Amanda at thesecularperspective.com. The theme music for The Obsessive Viewer comes courtesy of the band Loudlike from their EP Mistakes We Must Make. Additional bumper music is provided courtesy of As Good As It Gets, which can be found at facebook.com/asgoodasitgetsband. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Kitty!